Welcome, everyone. My name is Ann Kilby. I'm going to be your host for today's application workshop. I'm Assistant Dean and Director of Operations at Georgetown McDonough for the MBA programs here. This is my 7th year at Georgetown McDonough and my 16th year in higher education. The purpose of this session is to give you an understanding of what are the application components for the MBA program at Georgetown, and I'm also going to insert some best practices and tips so that you can put forth a competitive application and be strategic in doing so. I am going to save all questions until the end, and you can drop your questions in the Q&A box on your Zoom bar. So that's the way that I'm going to address your questions. So let's get started. First, for context, this is our first application workshop of the 2024-2025 admission cycle. So this is our official kickoff, which is really exciting. The MBA application should go live even today. We're aiming for today, maybe tomorrow. But right now, if you're trying to start an application, you won't see MBA in the dropdown because it's not live yet, but it will go live again today or tomorrow. Okay. So within the admissions committee, we are considering your candidacy across multiple application components, which are informing our prediction if you will be successful in the MBA program. So these different components are helping us predict your success in the classroom, so an academic prediction. From the standpoint of reaching your career goals based on your short-term goals, your resume, your background, your recommendation. Are we really the missing piece in that puzzle? And then also your fit within our community and culture. So again, we're using this variety of components to inform our prediction on your academic success, your professional recruitment success, and your community cultural success. So we're going to dive into each of these areas individually. First, we're going to start on the academic side. So how we evaluate your academic history is we are going to look at your unofficial transcripts, any certificates, any professional certifications that you have, and then we'll dive deeper. So we will look within your transcript to see any trends or patterns. Did your GPA increase over time? How did you perform on the more MBA relevant courses, quantitative courses? What was really driving your GPA? And then, of course, what was your ultimate GPA? We contextualize our assessment by considering the rigor of your major and institution. And then we take into context any insight that you offer to us in an optional essay. So here's your first tip. If your undergraduate GPA falls underneath a 3.0 on a 4.0 scale, then go ahead and submit an optional essay and let us know if there was anything circumstantial that affected your GPA and why we should expect a different performance from you in the MBA program. Similarly, if any of you experienced an off semester where maybe it's obvious that there was a difference in performance within one semester, provide us insight. Keep us from making assumptions by addressing it in an optional essay. And then I have some data here of the 80th percent range for the GPAs for both full-time and flex MBA. And again, that's on a 4.0 scale. For test scores, so we do have a test waiver for full-time flex and flex MBA online candidates. And those full policy details are on the MBA website. So if you simply Google MBA, Georgetown MBA test waiver, you'll be able to pull up the full policy. The policy is fairly black and white. so that you can make an educated guess if you will be approved or not. So I encourage you to take a look there if you're considering asking for a test waiver. But essentially, the test waiver criteria considers your academic history. So your performance in undergrad, if you had a STEM major or non-STEM major, your quantitative courses, things like that. So again, read the policy for more details. In terms of process, you apply for the test waiver in advance of submitting the full-time MBA application. So you find out in advance of submitting if you've been approved or denied the test waiver. For Flex MBA and Flex MBA Online, you apply for the test waiver within the application. Regardless, please check the policy, the criteria first to make sure you're setting yourself up to be approved. For those of you who do take a test, maybe you already have taken a test or you plan to take a test. It could be a way to differentiate yourself. If you are a good test taker, it could be a way for another strength. Also, when you think about your broader strategy of submitting a competitive application, think about how your test is one part of your broader academic review. So think about your undergraduate performance and some of the notes that I made on how we're assessing it. Think about then would a test score benefit your application, maybe round out your application. So those are some considerations for you. So those that do take a test, about half of you are choosing the GRE, which we increasingly are seeing that exam to be more popular. But you also have the options of a GMAT, and now it's the GMAT Focus edition, which they've rebranded to call the GMAT exam. So there's the GMAT option available to you. We also accept an exam called the Executive Assessment, which was designed by GMAC, who designed the GMAT. It is a shorter exam than the GMAT and GRE, and it has very different types of questions. It's meant to assess more practical real-world skills. So if you haven't decided which test to take, given these options available to you, I suggest taking a practice test across them or across two of them. See which one you are most naturally inclined towards and let that inform your test selection. Because on our side, we don't have a preference. So that's another way for you to be strategic. And then some data available to you to help you have a target, a goal for your test. So you'll see broken down by full-time and Flex MBA for the 80th percent range across the GMAT, the GRE, raw quant score, and the executive assessment. The last area to highlight on this slide is about your work experience, which we will learn about through your resume. Also, there's a section on the application when you're going through your employment history, so it's more in a table format. And then certainly we'll learn about your work experience through what you choose to share in your essays and through your recommender. So what we're looking for when evaluating your work experience, it's both the quantity of work experience that you have as well as the quality. So you'll see on the quantity side, I've got some statistics there for you on the 80th percent range. Our average years of work experience for both full-time and Flex MBA year over year is usually around 5 years. So that is the average. The lowest we're usually comfortable going is 2 years. And how we define that is post-undergrad, full-time paid work experience. So while we want to see your internship experience, your volunteer experience, your experiences throughout undergrad, the relevant ones on your resume, the industry standard for how we calculate work experience follows that criteria. Post-undergrad, full-time work that is paid. Now, our recruiters also have in mind what is the typical MBA, pre-MBA work experience. And that really drives our selection as well. And that, again, our comfort zone really starts at 2 years work experience because our recruiters have that expectation. And again, this is the 80th percent range, so there are exceptions, but this should give you a sense of our target audience. Within your resume, keep in mind that the admissions committee is made up of individuals with a variety of industry backgrounds and experiences. So steer away from using too technical or industry lingo. Make sure that you are phrasing things in a way that the general public could understand. And as a way to help us understand your progression beyond salary change, make sure to showcase your achievements, quantify your achievements, rather than showcasing your job description, showcase, again, to be repetitive, your achievements. So think about crafting your resume in that way. Another tip I will give on work experience has to do with the opportunity to submit an optional essay. So if you do have, I would say, 2 years of work experience or under, let me just say to be on the safe side. So 2 years of work experience, so under 3 years of work experience, or you have 10 years of work experience and above, I would encourage these two populations of people to write an optional essay. In that optional essay, go ahead and acknowledge that your years of work experience fall outside of our typical range. However, explain why now you believe is the right time for the MBA. If you're on the younger end, talk about how your quality of work experience overcompensates for your quantity. If you're on the upper end, talk about how your quality of experience is a strength, will add to your contributions to the cohort, the valuable perspective, and also why an MBA program versus an executive MBA program. So those are my tips for those populations. Okay, so we've covered these green boxes. So now we're going to cover the blue ones individually. So let's start with recommendation letter. For those of you applying to the Flex MBA or Flex MBA online, this letter really needs to be from your current direct supervisor. The reason being is because they are going to need to support you while you are a part-time student, because you're going to, with the assumption of you are continuing to work underneath them, they need to be aware, and again, they need to be supportive of your participation, so that when class time rolls around or when you have exam time, they will offer you the flexibility you need to be successful in the program. For the full-time MBA applicants, we still highly recommend you write a letter, you get a letter from your current direct supervisor. The reason being is because arguably that person knows you the best as a professional and can speak to your capabilities and your successes on a daily basis. So an error that I see some MBA applicants make is they get a recommendation from the most senior person in their company who only knows them maybe by reputation, doesn't have a lot of direct experience. What we then end up getting is a pretty vague recommendation without a lot of evidence, without a lot of evidential support. So it really does you a disservice. We don't get a lot of substance. While you might be thinking, oh, the name recognition or the title recognition would be more meaningful, no, the content is more meaningful for us. So please go to your current direct supervisor. Now, for the full-time students who are uncomfortable with going to their current direct supervisor because they think it could jeopardize a upcoming promotion or opportunity for them, understandable. You can go to a previous direct supervisor instead. You also have the option to go to an indirect supervisor. Try not to go to a peer. We feel like there's a conflict of interest there. And really, we're trying to understand the relationship and the perspective from someone who has overseen you and your performance. If you do choose to go with someone other than your current direct supervisor, I would recommend that you submit an optional essay, even if a few sentences, to tell us why you did that. Again, to prevent assumptions. You don't want us to think something or question something about your relationship with your supervisor or their potential support. So just tell us why you made that choice. Lastly, for recommendations, the best recommendations are those that really reinforce how you've been describing yourself or provide more examples that help demonstrate this description. So it's best if you are aligned. I would recommend then that you sit down with this person and ensure you are on the same page. Tell them why you're applying to the MBA, why you've chosen Georgetown McDonough, what you're hoping to achieve, those kinds of things, so that they can incorporate that same language when writing your recommendation. Operationally, what happens is when you enter the recommender's details in the application, that will trigger the recommendation form to be sent to your recommender, to their email. And then when they fill out the recommendation form, it will then auto attach to your application. So that's how that process works. The recommender will have an option to upload a letter if they choose. It is not a requirement. Instead, the requirement is to fill out the form, and the form has specific questions and ratings that they will provide about you. Okay. Lastly, on recommender, and this might be a question waiting for me, if you're an entrepreneur or you work in a family business, if you're an entrepreneur, you don't have a direct supervisor. If you work for a family business, you might not want to choose a parent as your recommender. There's a conflict of interest there. So instead for you, for entrepreneur, I've seen people choose clients, board members as their recommender. For family businesses, an indirect supervisor who's not a family member is typically what we see. Okay, for the interview. So if you are admitted to the MBA program, you must have had an interview. So it is a requirement for admission. And the interviews are by invitation only. So not everyone will be invited to interview, but if you are, that means that you have advanced in the process. So you should see that as a good sign. Our operational process is we read applications and then we extend interviews. So from a timing standpoint, you should expect a delay from when you submit your application to when you be considered for an interview. And then also from a timing standpoint, you could be invited to interview all the way up until the day before decision release. And I know that's super nerve-wracking, but please trust the process. We have multiple readers and committee members going through each file, and then we do audits, and we want to make sure that everyone who deserves an interview is offered one, and that can happen throughout the review period. And it's no reflection on the strength of your candidacy. Still to this day, my first year working at Georgetown McDonough, the best person I have interviewed, I interviewed them the day before round one decision release. So it can happen. To be ready. In terms of the modality, you will be invited to interview either in person with us here on campus, virtually via Zoom, and sometimes we have off-campus interview options where we're traveling and offer that opportunity. We recognize it is not accessible for everyone to come on campus. So of course, there's no disadvantage to you if you opt for virtual. Who could interview? You could be either an admissions committee staff, a current MBA student, or an alum. And you will not know who is interviewing you until you either meet them in person or join them on Zoom. So in your preparation, you should prepare questions for that person, regardless of the type of interviewer they are, if they're staff, student, or alum. You should treat the interview for the MBA like an interview for a job. You should come in well-researched on why the MBA, why Georgetown, these basic things we're going to ask you. What are you hoping to achieve? What are your career goals? And then, I always think it's a best practice. Think through some stories of your experiences that are meaningful, that showcase your achievements or your character, because you might be glad you've got those stories in your back pocket based on some questions we might ask you around scenarios. So that would be another tip I'd have for you, is to brainstorm some of those stories, but definitely come prepared with responses for those basic questions. The length of the interview is 30 minutes. We break that up by us asking you 20 to 25 minutes worth of questions, and then you have time to ask us questions as well. And try to ask us questions that can't easily be found on the website. Again, it just shows your level of research and readiness. The essays, you're required to write one written essay and to submit the video essay. So on the written essay, we have 3 prompts, and you are allowed to pick the one that resonates most with you, that excites you the most to write on. And my tip for you there with essay selection is think about what you're hoping we learn about you through reading your essay. What are the intended takeaways? Do you want to be seen as X kind of person? Or do you want to showcase a particular strength or value? So think of the end goal and work backwards and see how does that fit with the essays. So that would be a strategy you could consider. For the video essay, it is 1 minute in length, and it's really our opportunity to learn about you more as a holistic person. So we've already learned so much about your professional experiences through different aspects of your application. The video essay is where we get to hear from you on how else are you spending your time? What are you passionate about in terms of a hobby, an adventure, a simple pleasure that recently brought you joy? You are not assessed on the production value, so please produce it in whatever means are available to you on your smartphone, on your work computer, but do ensure you follow the instructions, answer the prompt, and make it 1 minute or less. The things that we are assessing for your video essay, it's not just following instructions. It is putting a voice, a face, a presence, a personality to your application. It humanizes the application. So you want to let yourself be you so we can get to know you better. So a good gut check would be, after you've recorded the video essay, have someone who knows you really well watch the essay and say, does this seem like me? Or does it seem like I'm posing as something else? Lastly, the resume, which actually we've mainly talked about when we went through work experience. The only other thing I would add is if you do have an employment gap of 3 months or longer, we will ask you to address it. It's a text box within the application. So 3 months or longer. And, many times it is a very legitimate, rational reason of it was the pandemic and you were let go, or, you needed to leave for health reasons, whatever it may be. Again, the reason we ask is to prevent assumptions and to get to hear the full story and context from you. And also because employers are going to ask. So we want to make sure that you're ready to talk about that topic. And we will coach you and support you and fine tuning that messaging, but it will be part of our understanding. Okay, so we've gone through all of these holistic application components. So I hope now you have a better sense of what you'll be preparing and submitting to us. And now let's look at some class profile data. Now, I've got one for each of the MBAs, so we'll start with full-time, and I know this is a very busy slide, so I'm going to talk you through it. First, the caveat is this is reflective of the class that started in 2023, so last fall, and will graduate next year in 2025. For the class that has orientation right now, literally this week, we are going through those statistics right now. So we are preparing those. We don't have those yet to be published. We will probably in the next week. But just so the caveat, this is for the class that started last fall. It was a class size of 258. You can see some demographic details here. One caveat I'd tell you is the class that is here right now, that has orientation right now, they are 49% international. This particular class was very high international for many reasons, but this was atypical. So you should expect a class size of about, a class split of about 50-50. You can see the pipeline or the funnel for applications versus enrollment, average age, work experience, GPA. You can see diversity of undergraduate fields of study here. It's always a myth buster. Only about a fourth of you have studied business. 40 different countries represented, so globally diverse. So about half it will be international, and then within that international group, global diversity. This is outstanding to me. 80% already speaks another language at an intermediate level or above. 60% roughly have lived, studied, or worked abroad. So again, very global group of individuals. We already went through some test information, diversity background. What I love about this breakdown is it should tell you, combination with undergrad, there is no one type of person to come to Georgetown. If anything, we prevent some kind of monopoly of a person. You know, there are plenty of MBA programs in the US that have majority financial services or majority consulting. Look at this, the highest is 17%. So there's I believe, I just said the stat this morning in orientation, we have 20 different industries represented in the full-time class that started today. Okay. Let's move to the Flex MBA. So again, this is the class that started last fall. It's a 3-year program. That's why now they have a class intended graduation of 2026. So for the Flex MBA, and I should say 3-year, it is a flexible program in terms of length. The average is 3 years. So the class was 105. You can see some demographic details here, the funnel data, age, work experience, GPA, fields of study, again, similarly, only about a fourth studied business, 15 countries represented, which is still impressive, even though full-time is 40. You know, this is our part-time program for people living and working in the DC, Maryland, Virginia area. So even though they're based here, there's still this global representation. We already went through academics, and then again, you see this diversity and non-majority for industries. And lastly, the Flex MBA Online. So last year was our inaugural class for the Flex MBA Online. So the class that's starting this week is our second intake. And so for that first class, we brought in a class of 45. You can see their demographic details as well. We already went through some, or actually we didn't go through academics. I think we only did Flex and the full-time. So here you get to see some academic stats for the Flex MBA Online. And again, this is our part-time program for people who are working full-time, and you are allowed to live within Eastern time zone or plus or minus 3 hours of Eastern time zone to participate. You can see the global perspective. It looks like there's a little bit higher representation of financial services. Again, this is only one class in our first class. And similarly, it seems like business is pretty consistent across programs of being around 25%. Okay, so those are your class profiles. Now I want to talk to you about money. Obviously, we recognize it is an investment for you in your future and meeting your career and academic and personal goals. We believe in the investment that you are making because we see them in our career statistics. We hear them anecdotally, and we see them in your growth here. So what does this look like for you on the financial side? The full-time program, this is your per year cost, and it is a flat rate per year, and it's a 2-year program. The tuition is announced on a yearly basis, so it is subject to change. Typically, it increases a little bit due to inflation. So this is for the current year. This data is reflective again of the class that started last fall. So 46% received a scholarship, and this was the average award of those that did receive. So it's about roughly, I mean, I can't do that complete math in my head, but it's less than 1/3 covering the tuition is the average award. So about half of the people are receiving an award, and then it's covering about 1/3 of their tuition cost. For the Flex MBA and the Flex MBA Online, given they are flexible durations, it is pay as you go. So it is a cost per credit. So certainly when you get into your elective courses, depending on how you choose to pace, you can really affect the cost of the program. The maximum length of the program is 5 years. And at that point, you're really pacing one course at a time. So this is an estimated cost per year, depending on the number of courses you take, but ultimately it will cost the same for the 2-year full-time program. Less of a percentage of these students are receiving an award at a smaller amount than full-time because the budget is much smaller for our part-time scholarship budget than the full-time. You all are earning an income. You are working full-time, while the full-time students are full-time students. So that really has informed our budget amount. And for the Flex and Flex MBA Online scholarships, these are a one-time hit in your first year. You're given this money. While the full-time scholarship award is a 2-year package, so this is the average award per year, and then your total package would be twice that. This hit each year. We have many partners where we can offer fellowships, scholarships, and partnership with them. So to clarify, all of the money, the source of the money that you're given is the university. However, we have agreements with these various centers and organizations where you are also able to be named a fellow if you meet certain criteria. So for example, let's see, let me pick. For Forte, if you receive a minimum of $10,000 scholarship from our office, and you're a self-identified woman, or you have evidence of supporting women in leadership, then you'd be named a Forte Fellow. That's their criteria. Reaching out, their minimum is $15,000 per year, and you are either a self-identified LGBTQ+ or an ally, and then you could be considered for the Ramba Fellowship. So that's just an example. There's several, and this isn't even everything. So this is just to give you a sampling of the variety of awards and fellowships you'd be considered for. You are awarded your scholarship and fellowship at the time of admission, so it would be written in your admit letter if you are a recipient. Lastly, I've got 2 more slides after this, so we're near to the end, and then I'll move to your questions. I want to make sure you all are aware of the application deadlines for this year. They are live on our website. A couple things to highlight. So every round has its application deadline, its own decision notification date, and deposit dates. We're very transparent about all of these dates. So what that means is if you choose to apply in round 2, so you submit your application by 11:59 p.m. Eastern time on January 6th, then you will hear from us on March 20th, your decision, admit, waitlist, or deny. We do batch release on that day. And then the decision's up to you if you're admitted to commit to us by making your first deposit of $2,000 on this date and your second deposit of $2,000 on this date. And both of these deposits go towards your tuition payments. So it's not additional payments, it's part of your tuition. I also want to highlight early action. This is the first year ever we have had an early action round. The early action round is intended for people who are ready to commit to Georgetown, who want to signal to us that we are your number one. You want to find out as soon as possible if you got admitted to Georgetown. And if you are admitted, you are ready to make a binding agreement to us where you will, when you accept your offer, you will also withdraw applications from any other schools. Now, as incentive for our early action candidates, again, you get to find out October 30th if you've been admitted. So think about that. You'd start the program the following end of July, the majority is in August. Look at that advance notice for you to prepare, get in the right headspace, go through your academic prep, your career prep, find housing if you need to move. Like, think of that guarantee. Another incentive for our full-time candidates, if you are full-time and apply an early action, then you are able to be considered for what is called the Dean's Fellowship, and that is new this year. So the Dean's Fellowship we will give to a group of individuals who are high merit that will enhance our quality and diverse community. There are a slew of benefits. It's broken down on the MBA website, but it is really a slew, in that you get a minimum of $25,000 a year. And as you saw, the average award is 19. So you get an above average award as a minimum. And then there's a bunch of other benefits around graduate assistantships and a mock class, or a mock statistics class or an analytics class, dinner with the dean. Like there's a bunch of benefits for it. So not only do you get to indicate to us that Georgetown's your number one, you get to find out early, but then you also get all of these benefits for your consideration. So again, if you're ready to commit, early action is for you. If that is not for you, then apply in round 1. We would welcome your application at that point. Lastly, I'm going to stay on this slide while I go through your questions. We've got a variety of QR codes here. So if you want to have text functionality with us, this will take you to an application we have called Unibuddy, where you can send chats to us and current students, us meaning admissions. You can get a digital brochure. You can see our full events list. And then Explore Georgetown McDonough will take you to the website. Okay, so with that, I'm going to open up the Q&A box on the Zoom toolbar. So if you have any questions, make sure to drop them in there, and I'll just start reading out responses. First question is, for your undergraduate GPA, the data that I presented was on a 4.0 scale. When we request your unofficial transcript, we also request your grade scale to tell us how to interpret your performance. So for example, this person, their undergraduate grade scale was on a scale of 10. So your university's grade scale will tell us 10 equals excellent. 9 equals very good. Whatever it may be, it'll tell us how to interpret it. We rely on them to help us convert it. Now, how you can convert your performance to give you a sense of how you fit into our average, I'm gonna pull out Excel so I can do this calculation for you. And I'm just gonna share my screen. So I said the average GPA for the full-time program is always around a 3.3 out of 4, which is 82.5%. So let's say that you graduated with an 8 out of 10. That's an 80%. So it gives you a way to compare on a 3.0 scale, or on a 4.0 scale, excuse me. And I also mentioned if you have under a 3.0 for your cumulative GPA, that's an opportunity for you to write an optional essay and to share with us maybe some circumstance that was happening to you. So again, a 3.0 out of 4.0 is a 75%. So you can, again, do that conversion depending on your scale. I'm going to get rid of Excel so I can leave you with the QR codes. Unless, no, there we go. Okay. Okay, this question is, what if you have not completed any quantitative subjects in undergraduate, but have a high GPA? Well, you would have to take a standardized test because, again, I encourage anyone who's considering the test waiver to read the full policy online. But again, the policy has to do with STEM designation, non-STEM, and your quantitative background. And so given that you don't have quantitative subjects, I would assume then that you wouldn't be approved the test waiver, but please do check the policy. So then what we would do is we would rely on your performance on the quantitative section of the standardized test to help us see your acumen there. So if you don't have an undergrad, we turn to the standardized test. So even if you were eligible for the test waiver, I would encourage you to take the standardized test so that we can see your quantitative performance there. Yeah, I'll leave it at that. You could also take courses, but I would first start with the standardized test because that is one of our primary indicators, your academic history, your standardized test. When you start taking coursework, you're trying to overcompensate for those things. So I would rather you spend your time wisely, focused on where I think it'll make the most impact. If you do well on the standardized test, the quantitative section, you still have time. Sure, certainly take a course. And for a course, I recommend statistics as the topic area because that's one of your first quantitative courses for the MBA. So that'll help you then transition when you start the program too. But I hope you saw through the undergraduate fields of study, we've got plenty of liberal arts backgrounds and welcome those. When I shared the 80th percent ranges for the standardized test, when it said GMAT scores, that was the original GMAT, not the GMAT focus. The GMAT focus is on a, the numbers are every 5. So 695, 705, while the GMAT is on zeros, so 690, 700. But anyway, let you know those averages are the original GMAT, which is very good to note because you'll need to use GMAT's correlation table to compare between the original GMAT and the GMAT focus. They definitely have different scoring. This person asked, is it a pro, con, or neither to have more work experience in the middle 80th percent range? I hope you heard, I think you asked this question before I went through the work experience section where I said, 80th percent range means it's just the 80th percent range. We absolutely admit more and less experienced people. But for those who have more experience, you need to be strategic and writing an optional essay to tell us why you having more experience is to our benefit and how it will help you in achieving your professional goals. And why now, and why an MBA versus an MBA, an executive MBA. So this person is asking for coaching specifically around their resume. So what I would suggest to you is you can use this top left QR code to chat with us, to ask us questions, either a current student or an admissions committee member, about your resume and get some guidance from us there. What else can you do? In the signature line of all admissions committee members, and also you can simply ask our main inbox. Our main inbox email is georgetownmba@georgetown.edu. Again, georgetownmba@georgetown.edu. How to schedule a Zoom session with an admissions committee member. So in our, to go back, we've got in our signature line a hyperlink for that, or they can ask you, they can tell you in the main inbox how to sign up for a Zoom session. And those Zoom sessions are Q&A, where you ask us questions, the admissions committee questions, such as, I'm thinking about this for my resume, what do you think? So we can't do resume review for you, because that would give you an unfair advantage, given we are also the reviewers of your application. A student could, you could ask them to support you with that if they'd be willing, but we can answer the questions you have around drafting your resume. Actually, I'm seeing, I do think the chat bar, the chat function is available. So let me try dropping in that calendar link and see if that will work here. So did that work? No, it won't let me send. The chat function's not enabled. I'm sorry. So again, to view, sorry, I'm trying to do too many things at once. I don't know why my slideshow just went away. That's okay. To set up a Zoom call with an admissions committee member, either if you've spoken to someone in admissions, you'll see the link in our signature line, or email georgetownmba@georgetown.edu and ask for that calendar link. All right, this next question, this is a good one I should have already addressed. If you've only worked with your current supervisor for a few weeks, is it okay to use your previous supervisor who recently retired? Absolutely. So that would be a circumstance that completely makes sense for you to not use your current supervisor who doesn't necessarily know you very well. Do still submit an optional essay, even just like a sentence, to tell us that explanation. Okay, this person asked about graduate assistantships. So we usually have about 90 graduate assistantships each year at the business school. And those are opportunities, I should say graduate and teaching assistantships, where you'll work directly with faculty. So a graduate assistantship is more so working with the faculty on their research and supporting their work. A teaching assistantship is where you're supporting them in the classroom. Maybe with grading, co-teaching, that kind of thing. And so, like I said, there are usually about 90 positions available at the business school each year. Once you become a student with us, those postings will go up in what will be your student portal, where you'll be able to apply for those positions. So you don't need to do anything in the admissions process. This is something that you do once you're a student and apply for to be considered by faculty to work with them. And just know that you can apply for these positions, not just at the business school, but across the university. So if you want to work with a faculty member at the foreign service school, at the policy school, et cetera, you can apply for those roles too. And that is for both domestic and international students. International students are allowed to work on campus up to 20 hours a week, and that will not conflict with your F1 student visa status. For your video essay, we have no idea how many attempts you made at recording and re-recording. We are only given the final link from you about how to watch it. So feel free, spend as much time as you want on it. Just don't don't beat yourself up about it. Don't overanalyze it. Really, we just want to see you and hear you talking and see you presenting. In terms of recommendations, we require one. And again, we strongly request it to be from your current direct supervisor. This person is asking a question about the test waiver criteria. So I appreciate you pulled up the waiver policy. You're reading through it right now. We consider computer science and technology within the STEM area. So that would be, those courses would be considered quantitative courses. Certifications would be considered quantitative certifications. Major would be considered, obviously, STEM. So again, none of this guarantees your approval, but it gives you a sense, it gives you a best guess. In terms of the GMAT, this person asked if there's a specific section the admissions committee weighs more heavily. Yes, the quantitative section. And that's true for the GRE as well. Given the quantitative rigor of the MBA program, it's really important for us to have confidence in your quantitative acumen, and the standardized test is one place where we can see that. How many students also have other graduate degrees? Well, I just went through those statistics in orientation. So about anywhere from 15% to 20% year over year typically already have a graduate degree. And yes, the performance of those graduate degrees absolutely are considered as part of your academic history. It depends across your degrees, which one is more MBA relevant, or which one has quantitative courses, which one was more recent. All of that is considered. This is a repeat question, but it's an important one. For the 80th% range for GMAT that I shared, that is of the original GMAT, what's called the GMAT 10th edition. If you took the focus, you'll need to convert those scores in order to compare. And again, there's a calibration table on GMAC's website. You can Google it. In terms of the English test, we accept the TOEFL and the IELTS exam, the IELTS exam. When you're required to take one of those exams is, or I guess, let me do the reverse. When you're waived from taking those exams, it is because English was the medium of instruction for your schooling, for your undergraduate or your graduate. It needs to be stated on your transcript that English was the medium, and that is the waiver. So you won't have to apply for a waiver as long as we see English is the medium, then just don't take the English language test. We do allow the common letter of recommendation from GMAC. We have instructions in the recommendation section of the application about how to do that. So yes, we accept it is the short answer. So your interviewer, as I mentioned, could be an admissions committee member, could be a current student or an alum. It is what we call a double-blind interview, and that you don't know who your interviewer is until you come to the interview. But also the only thing they know about you is your resume. That is to prevent bias. So they don't know how you did in undergrad. They don't know how you did on your standardized test. They only have your resume to offer context and to help inform some of their questions around, tell me more about your experience there, or the time you spent doing this. So all they're given is your resume. For those of you who attended this session, you are eligible for an application fee reduction. So what will happen is you're going to get a survey, a post-event survey. When you submit that survey, you will get the application fee reduction code. If you want to be considered for an application fee waiver, on our website, we have a whole list of eligibility for the waiver and the reduction. Usually it has to do with attendance to certain events or association to certain organizations. We also have a need-based reduction and waiver, so you can see the full listing there. But you attending here will make you eligible for a reduction. In terms of your unofficial transcript, if you are an international, if you achieved your education internationally, we do not require a WES evaluation. You certainly can submit a WES evaluation, but it is not required. We do need it to be in English, so WES will do that for you, or you can get a notarized copy of a translation. But otherwise, if it's already in English, you can submit it as it is, as an unofficial copy. I'm getting some repeat questions. Good. So if you apply an early action, does that reduce the chances of getting scholarship from the general large pool? No. So early action for full-time Flex and Flex MBA candidates, we consider you for all the standard, all the normal scholarships and fellowships. So all those partnership ones that I displayed at the bottom of your screen here, you're considered for all of these. In addition, the full-time applicants for early action are also considered for the Dean's Fellowship. So it's an addition to. If you are waitlisted in early action, then you will receive a decision notification as part of round one on decision notification date, on round one decision notification date. Similarly, if you're waitlisted in round one, you'll receive the next decision on round two's decision notification date. Now know that your decision could be you're still on the wait list, but it could be a final decision of admit or deny. But that's how we treat waitlisted candidates. Do you super score standardized test results, or do you just look at the top score? So we have to report on one set of a score. That's what goes into our class profile. That's all the reporting that we do. So we do have to report on one. However, from a admission committee consideration, we look at all your scores and take them into account to try to make a case for your admittance. This person's asking about the balance of sharing personal information that offers context versus not wanting to hide anything. So we want to be respectful and sensitive about private matters. You share with us what detail you feel comfortable sharing. The purpose of you sharing detail, the purpose of you addressing a situation is because you're trying to prevent us from making assumptions. So if a circumstance happened in undergraduate that you believe affected your undergraduate performance, then we need you to address it. The level of detail you provide is completely up to you. So you could leave it as vague as, I had a personal situation dealing with family health that significantly impacted my undergraduate experience. Or you could go into more detail. So again, that depends on your comfort. This question, and I know we're out of time, but I only have 5 questions left, and it actually looks like some of these are repeated. So I'm gonna keep going for a few more minutes. But if you all need to sign off, thank you for joining. How much emphasis does Georgetown place on community and volunteering work in the MBA application process? So I mentioned to you at the beginning of the session, we're assessing you on 3 verticals: academic readiness, recruitment and professional fit, and community cultural fit. There are a lot of ways for us to determine your fit within our community and culture. Our culture is values-based. It is being service-minded, and how you display that service can come through in volunteerism. It can come through how you behave, how you have behaved in the workplace, in school. So there are a lot of ways to convey your fit within our culture. So if you do have volunteering or service in the community, that could help contribute towards your fit and our assessment in the community culture, but it is not required. So our Flex and Flex MBA online candidates have access fully to the career services that the full-time students have. So if you're wanting to make a career pivot or even something more dramatic as a Flex student, you certainly can. These services these resources are available to you. The difference is we make the full-time students go through a recruitment structure with the career office throughout their duration of their program here, while the Flex and Flex MBA online students, we don't have you go through that process until your final year of the program, but you can engage with us at any point in time of the program. We're almost done. So for English language test, it needs to still be active at the time of application submission. So if it expires in February, you need to apply before then. What are the benefits of coming to the events you guys are hosting? Well, I hope you're becoming more informed about whatever the topic is that we're hosting on. So on this session, I hope you're becoming more informed about what are the application requirements and components and how to be strategic in submitting those. And then some of the events have associated benefits like an application fee reduction or waiver. Again, this event has an application fee reduction as long as you submit the post-event survey. And it's also supposed to just get you excited and, build the momentum of wanting to come to Georgetown. Oh, this is a great question. So if you apply during early action and you are offered admission and you make that binding offer, you are accepting the offer, the admission offer. We also might have given you a scholarship, and so you're accepting that scholarship amount. That does not prevent you from what's called our scholarship reconsideration process, where you could request reconsideration on your scholarship based on either you wouldn't have competitive offers actually because you would have withdrawn it. You request reconsideration based on merit-based changes of your candidacy. You retook a standardized test, you got promoted, those kinds of things. You can request reconsideration. The binding offer means you are committed to coming to Georgetown. So that's what the binding means. You're not going to go to another school or apply to another school. How does Georgetown view assess candidates who take the executive assessment? We don't have any biases against your test selection. You should choose the tests that you're most naturally inclined towards. So if you perform better on the executive assessment versus like the GMAT or GRE, you should take the executive assessment. Okay, I made it through the questions, yay. Thank you for those of you who are still hanging on. Again, I hope you found this to be informative and offers you a plan for how to start the process or move forward in the process. But if you do have any follow-up questions, please reach out to us in these variety of ways. And I wish you the best of luck. So good luck and hope you are able to join us at Georgetown. Take care. Have a good rest of your day. Bye.